Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, August 23rd, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to all of those who are joining via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and delegations who will participate in this meeting tonight. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the meeting. I advise that I do have attendance regrets from Councillor David Johnston. Let us move to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest for the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices. Provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing, if not already done, to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting as a priority item. First tonight, let's begin with Councillor Anstett. Welcome, Councillor Anstett.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. This evening, through you, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycare, as my son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. There's a little bit of technical stuff going on here in the chamber. Bear with us. Councillor Behrens, welcome tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Good evening, Council. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I will declare a conflict of pecuniary interest on 5.5.1, particularly the daycare accounts, as I have grandchildren attending the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as well as day programming, and subsequent to that, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, I have Deputy Mayor Kelly. Welcome.
Hello again, Mayor Todd, and hello, Council. And yes, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest on items 5.5.1 as well. The accounts, specifically to Perth Meadows, as my mother and father-in-law are tenants. And again, with the daycare, as my grandson attends the daycare, and consequently with 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Callum. Any others that we haven't heard from ahead of this meeting wishing to make a declaration tonight? Okay. So that allows us to move on. Again, there's some technical stuff being worked on in the chamber, but I think we're getting there. I hope so. So let me just explain our virtual processes. As usual, I will be systematically trying to seek consent from councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. To some degree, I do this alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental. We will follow the speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to have another crack at the bottom of the list. And this is a very normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. It appears that we're having some camera problems in the chamber. Our IT expert, Simon, is nodding that that's the case. Can I just ask council to hold for a moment while I confer with Simon and see whether there's an alternative approach that he'd recommend for us at this time? Just hold on. Okay, so council, you get a different view of me this time. It does appear that the camera in the council chamber has decided, unfortunately, to not do its job tonight. So we are going to use the webcam on my computer, and we've just shifted that into place. Thank you for your patience with that. Just a reminder, if you are not audible, I'll call on you and let you know that. And councillors are asked to maintain a mute state during the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I'll call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and then return, please, to mute. Let's turn to item 2.2 of our agenda. I saw a note in the chat function indicating a request for amendment. Fairfelds, have you noticed this or not? Okay, so should I move forward with our usual approach to this then? Thank you. All right, so regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads simply as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Do we wish to add as amended, or do we wish to? Okay, so before we move forward with the resolution, we're noting that Councillor Duncan has asked for the opportunity to amend an agenda item. Councillor Duncan, did you wish to come on and suggest to council what it is you'd like to have happen here?
Yes, it's a personnel matter about an identifiable individual with regards to the North Perth Fire Department, and I would just like a small verbal update from the CAO in regards to that.
Thank you. I'm just conferring with the clerk. Hold on, please. Thank you. So the clerk advises that what we should do is ask CAO Snell if he would be prepared to comment on this in the closed session meeting of council that is planned for this evening. CAO Snell, are you agreeable to providing a report at this point on the subject matter that Councillor Duncan has requested?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. So then we will amend the agenda to add an extra item to our closed session meeting that pertains to a report regarding personnel. And when we get the motion, when we get to that point in the meeting where there's the motion to go in camera, we'll make sure that we adjust that motion properly, Councillor Duncan. But I think given that you've asked for this, it still is warranted that we say as amended in this resolution. So let's reword the resolution just slightly. It should read that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended. Why don't we start with you, Councillor Duncan? Will you serve as our mover for that?
I certainly will move that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Mine hasn't come up, so there it is. And that is carried. Thank you. That moves us to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's recognition and action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are just 2 items on our consent agenda this evening, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these 2 items for further discussion, action, or correction? Are we seeing anything there, Clerk Berthelds? No. Okay, so I have a resolution then to receive 2 items and approve previous council minutes. It reads as follows, that consent items 3.1 to 3.2 be received for information and the minutes of the August 9th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one?
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. At this time, then, we move forward in our agenda to item number 4. We have no public meetings for this evening's council meeting. Further, we have no delegations that have asked for an audience with council this evening. That allows us to move forward to item 5, reports from departments and key staff. For item 5.1.1, council is presented with a report from the Human Resources Manager pursuant to an endorsement by the council's HR committee that proposes the introduction of a new position to the organization chart in the Environmental Services Department. We have Ms. Jen Robinson, our Manager of Human Resources, with us to present the report and explain the requests to council, and both Ms. Robinson and Mr. Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to answer any questions that may arise. At this time, I'll call then on Ms. Robinson. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and members of council. This evening, we do have a proposal before council to add 1 full-time position to the Environmental Services, Water and Wastewater Department. Looking for that position to begin in January of 2022. The position has been supported by the Human Resources Committee. So in the report, we did give the current structure of the Water and Wastewater Division, consisting of 6 staff plus the Manager of Environmental Services, the Chief Operator overseeing the utility operators, and we have Utility Operator 1 and a Utility Operator 2s in the department, so total utility operators consisting of 5. The proposal is to add 1 additional position, being the Utility Supervisor. And that utility supervisor would be in a leading, a directing, and a working role. So they would work with the utility operators in the field, but be supervising their daily actions. The reason we are requesting this position is a number of reasons. So first of all, North Perth continues to grow at a rapid pace and has for a number of years. With this growth, it means more things to do, more valves to operate and to maintain, more hydrants to maintain and flush, and more equipment to operate and maintain. And with our increased subdivision work, especially in Atwood and Listowel, that also demands more of our operators' time. In 2021, there were some new regulations that came into effect that does require a certified operator to be on site for every connection to a water main. In the past, this wasn't necessary and was overseen by a site engineer. That has approximately added 2 to 3 days full 2 to 3 full days worth of work during the busy building seasons per week. And then additionally, the services agreement with Perth East for our locator agreement is going to end on December 31st of this current year. And beginning in 2022, we will once again be performing our own locates, which will have a further increased demand on our operators' time. So as I had indicated, this supervisor position would be a working supervisor. They would not participate in the on-call rotation that our utility operators participate in, but rather they would be the designated ORO, which would be the overall supervisory responsibility for the water system, and they would rotate that ORO responsibility with the chief operator. They would coordinate the activities of the operation. There would be a clear chain of command, and it allows us to have some planned succession planning for environmental services. In the report, I did indicate the licensing requirements that each tier of our operations requires for working within our water systems, our water and wastewater systems. I'm not going to go into that, but if there are any questions on the licensing requirements, we can certainly answer those questions for you. Our proposed recruitment strategy for this position would be to post the utility supervisor position internally. If there is no interest internally for the position, we would suggest then posting it through our normal recruitment channels externally. And if the position is filled internally, the vacant position would be posted in an external recruitment method. We did include municipal comparators in the report, with the closest comparison being Minto. Minto currently operates with a staff of 8 and is fairly similar to our operations. With this additional position, we would be looking at a combined staffing of 7. The job description has been banded by our external human resources consultants at Warden Updegrove, and it has been banded at a band 10 with an annual rate of pay of $75,046 to $92,144. And the job description was attached. So I certainly, or Mark, can answer any questions that you have about the report and the proposal.
Ms. Robinson, Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution then for our consideration. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the job description for the position of utility supervisor and the addition of 1 full-time equivalent position to the organizational chart. And further, that Human Resources begin the internal recruitment and selection process in the 4th quarter of 2021 to ensure that resources are in place for January 2022 position start. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be a mover for this one?
Yes, I'll gladly move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote.
Hi, Mayor Todd. I've had to reboot my e-scribe. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the Deputy Mayor's vote, then that is carried. Thank you. Let's move on then to item 5.1.2. Council is presented with a report from the Human Resources team pursuant to an endorsement by Council's HR Committee that proposes the introduction of a new position, Finance and Development Coordinator, to the organization chart. This new role will interface with both the Finance Department and the Operations Department. Again, welcome Jen Robinson, our Manager of Human Resources, to present the report and the recommended actions. Jen, again, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the second position that we're proposing tonight is that of the Finance and Development Coordinator. It is a new position, and we are proposing to add 1 full-time position as a joint venture between the Finance and Public Works Department. The position has been supported by the Human Resources Committee, and this is a collaborative position with both departments seeking additional support. To start off, why are we requesting this position? It all comes down to growth and growth of the municipality and the increased workload that comes with that. So we have seen, and I'll just summarize this quickly, approximately a 25% increase in our customers over the past 5 years for our water wastewater count. And with the growth that we're experiencing within our municipality, we're seeing an increase in building permits, lot grading deposits, servicing agreements, subdivision agreements, development charges, and the list really does go on. What this position will do is provide a consistent approach towards subdivision development, construction administration. Currently, the position, we currently have a position, accounts receivable and cash control analyst. The proposal with this new position, the finance and development coordinator, essentially is splitting that position into two, splitting it into accounts receivable and then the finance and development coordinator roles that were somewhat performed within that AR cash control analyst position previously. Our KPMG Administrative Services Proficiency Review Study and our business plans both alluded to the fact that Finance and Public Works were needing some additional staff support with their tasks. And the KPMG Administrative Services Proficiency Review also did outline that we needed a more consistent and streamlined approach towards subdivision construction development, the administrative side of that. And this position really does bring those two together into a seamless role that can function within the municipality. In addition to that, our auditors have expressed a desire for separation of functions towards bank reconciliations. We do have many municipal drain projects that are on the go. This position would act as an audit liaison with grant funding options. It would be in charge of the municipal management software. I believe there's a report coming for that tonight also in council. And then the development coordinator, which the KPMG study alluded to. Taking those tasks away from accounts receivable would alleviate the accounts receivable function to take over overflow workload within the finance department and really focus on those accounts receivable and customer service needs. So the recruitment strategy that we're bringing forward this evening would be to allow the current incumbent in that accounts receivable and cash control analyst position to decide which stream of the position they're most interested in, whether they would like to branch to accounts receivable or take on the new finance and development coordinator position. And whichever position is left vacant, we would recruit for externally. We did add some municipal comparators for your information, and we can answer any questions that that you have about that. This position would put North Perth at a finance-related staff count of 9, which would be comparable to Kincardine, and some other municipalities do have a little bit higher staff count there. The job description has been pay banded by our external human resources consultants, Ward and Updegrove, and it has been banded at a level 9, which has an annual salary range of $58,840 to $72,235. And the job description has been attached for your review. And again, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have about the proposal for this position.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. First, comments or questions? I have one from Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Jen, for the report. The question I have is just on the financial implications. In the previous report, it was specifically mentioned that it was going to be in the 2022 information coming through to the budget. But on this one, there's no specific information regarding the budget. Do we actually already have this in the 2021 budget, or am I missing something? Thank you.
Fran, would you mind talking to that point?
No, of course I wouldn't mind. At this point in time, no, I don't have this additional position in our 2021 budget, but quite frankly, by the time we would be able to hire a new position and transition, there'd be very little time in 2021 for this to be a cost to us, which I feel that I could manage within our current budget. However, there was some monies that were put aside for implementing some of our business plans, as I believe you recall in CAO's budget. And if necessary, I would hope that I would be able to act some of that, but I believe that I am able to manage it within the current finance budget for the last month and a half, 2 months of the year.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the answer. I just want to make sure, because I did notice the distinction between the two reports, and based on your inputs, Francis, I think it's appropriate to move forward. I'm just concerned that without that information, we would be approving something that we don't have a specific budget for, but thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or first comments before we consider the resolution that's been prepared for us? All right, I'm not seeing any at this point. So I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the job description for the position of Finance and Development Coordinator and the addition of one full-time equivalent position to the organizational chart, and that the proposed recruitment strategy is supported, and that Human Resources begin the recruitment and selection process as soon as possible for the vacant position. I'm going to call on Councillor Anstedt to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I would move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Barracks, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Bearfelds? No? Okay, well, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. As always, I know it's a busy time for you. Now, let's turn to items 5.2, reports from the Clerk's Department. For item 5.2.1, Council is invited to formulate a recommendation to the Council of the County of Perth on an application for consent to sever from Conley Farms and Ralph and Paulette Honeybear, which intends to create a new residential lot in the agricultural zone of Alma Township. I'll call on Mr. Yilmaz, our North Perth planner with the County of Perth, to explain the application's intent and to answer any questions from Council. Welcome, Mr. Yilmaz.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council. So I have two consent applications tonight. Both are from the same applicant, which is Conley Farms Incorporated, and both are proposing to sever an existing farm dwelling, which have been deemed surplus to the needs of a consolidated farm operation. The first application, the subject property is located at 5599 line 81 and is primarily composed of active agricultural land and contains an existing farm dwelling with a large shed. The 2015 air photo shows a barn with bins located west of the dwelling. However, these structures have been removed and are no longer on the property. The consent sketch submitted with the application illustrates a proposed rectangular shaped severed lot with a lot frontage of approximately 104 meters or 341 feet along line 81 and a lot area of approximately 0.95 hectares or 2.3 acres. The proposed severed lot contains an existing farm dwelling with a storage shed as well as a well and a septic and weeping bed. The proposed retained farmlands would have a lot area of approximately 39.4 hectares or 97.3 acres. And the proposed retained farmland contains farmland and no buildings. Decisions on consent to sever applications must be consistent with the provincial policy statement, which states that surplus farm dwelling severances must be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate water and sewage services, and that the planning authority ensures that the new residential dwellings are, ensures that new residential dwellings are prohibited on any remnant parcel of farmland created by the severance. The proposed consent application would result in a severance of a dwelling that is surplus to the farming operation resulting from a farm consolidation. The applicant, Conley Farms Incorporated, currently operates several existing farm operations in Perth County. It is the opinion of staff that based on the proposed severed lot It is the minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate water and sewage services. Additionally, as required by the PPS, the retained farm parcel will be rezoned to prohibit the establishment of any future residential dwellings. The vast majority of the subject property is within the agriculture designation of the County of Perth official plan. A small portion of lands toward the rear of the property is within the natural resource environment designation, but is unaffected by this application. And these lands will remain with the retained lands. Specific County of Perth official plan policies applicable to the application include Section 5631 and Section 16.3. Section 5631 pertains to surplus farm dwelling severances. Staff have reviewed the application against the requirements and conclude that the proposed surplus farm dwelling severance conforms to these policies. This is discussed in detail in the staff report. However, it is important to note that the County of Perth official plan states that the new residential lot must be limited to a minimum size and does not include any more prime agricultural land than what is required for the residential use, accessory uses, and the accommodation of appropriate sewage and water services. Existing buildings and landscape features such as ponds, gardens, and windbreaks may be included in the surplus farm dwelling lot, provided they are deemed accessory to the residential use and are in close proximity to the dwelling. The proposed severed lot includes a row of trees on both the west side and the east side of the lot, with these features proposed to be included with the residential use. Historically, these trees have acted as a separation between the residential use and the farming operation. These trees are considered a landscape feature of the residential use, and if they are included with the residential lot, cultivated prime agricultural lands are not impacted nor removed from production. Based on the layout of the proposed lot, the location of the weeping bed, and the distance between the trees and the dwelling, planning staff are of the opinion that this feature accommodates the residential use. A large storage shed is also proposed to remain with the residential use. The shed is considered a permitted accessory use and will accommodate the residents. Both the proposed severed lot and retained farm lot are within the agricultural zone of the Municipality of North Perth zoning bylaw. As noted, a condition of consent has been included that will impose restrictions on future uses of the severed and the retained lot through a site-specific amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. Staff have no objection to the proposed consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling lot, subject to the conditions of consent included with the resolution. As such, it is planning staff's recommendation that North Perth Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever number B2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmanis. Council, any questions or first comments on this matter? Councilor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. My question is through to Sean. Thank you for your report. I noticed that the new policies of the county official plan apply or are attached to the report. The last time we discussed this, council had raised some issues of concern. I understand the letter went through to council. I don't recall council seeing a copy of the notice of decision. Is that correct, or am I missing something?
Thank you for the question. I to be completely honest, I'm not sure if that is a situation or not. I didn't send anything specifically, but that wouldn't have come through my desk. I most certainly could find out if and when it was sent.
I appreciate that. The reason why I'm asking the question, it's not to create a problem here, is that North Perth Council expressed some concerns with respect to the policy, which I understand was adopted by County Council. But I believe North Perth Council, as being involved in providing input, should have received a copy of the notice. And I've gone through our previous council agendas, and I don't believe I saw a copy of the notice of decision. So that's where I am questioning it. Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell, I'm just conferring with the clerk about this for a moment. Just give me a moment, right? Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I'm just sort of conferring with the clerk about whether this corporation has received formal correspondence from the County of Perth pertaining to its changes allowing for a greater degree of, I suppose, liberality around these severances. As you recall, I think it was OPA 189, I think that might have been the number, was before County Council and it was approved. I'm told by the clerk that we may not have received official notification from the County of Perth at this point, but we will investigate and find out what the status of that notification is, because it certainly does make sense that this corporation should be advised that an official plan amendment that has impacts on applications like this was approved by Council. Does that help?
I appreciate that, Mayor Todd. And as I say, I don't want to create a problem here. It's just a matter that under the Planning Act, there's a requirement to provide notice of a decision to any and all that have provided comments through to the decision-making authority. And that is on the basis of the Planning Act itself, and then the whoever provided input has the ability, if it chooses, not to agree with the position of the council, that they could appeal that to LPAT. I'm not suggesting that North Perth Council would have. All I'm saying is that it is a requirement under the Act that notice is given prior to the OPA coming into force. So that's the issue, and I would appreciate comment being received back from staff. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll chase that down and find out what has happened there. I certainly remember participating in the vote for that matter. I don't know what procedures fell out from that in terms of organization to organization notice and so forth. So we'll chase that down. Thank you, Councillor Ruthwell. I think there is a presumption, certainly, and I want to confirm this with Mr. Yilmaz, that those new conditions that were adjusted as a result of that County Council action are being applied. That lens is being applied here and to the next one. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I specifically noted that one because I knew the change was of interest of this council.
Okay. Thank you.
But, yes.
So we have a little bit of homework to do. Any other questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Barracks?
I guess my concern is if that change to 189 is not technically enforced yet, it should not be used in evaluating this application. So that's somewhat pertinent information to know.
Thank you. I do think that's a valuable question. Mr. Yilmaz, you got anything on this one? I think there's a principle here that is rightfully making some of us nervous.
Yes, for sure, and I can understand that. So I do apologize because I can't speak to the notice being sent, but it has been, the appeal period for this OPA has lapsed, and it was not appealed. So to that respect, the OPA would be in effect. However, with regard to the notice, again, I can't really speak to what happened there, but we most certainly can investigate. This is still just coming for council's blessing, and we still have time before we go to Land Division Committee.
Thank you.
So excuse me, if we need to go to Land Division Committee, sorry for interrupting.
Sure. The clerk is advising that she's reviewing emails at this point to Councillor Rothwell's question and Councillor Brent's question. So we're just sort of looking to see what we have received formally at this point in time. Councillor Rothwell, do you have another question?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Todd. And it's further to Planner Yilmaz's comment. So when is the Land Division Committee scheduled? Well, when's the date scheduled to go to Land Division Committee if it's required to go there?
This one wouldn't be on until the September meeting, which would be at the end of September.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate the reason why I raised the comment is specifically what Councillor Behrens had raised. It's an issue of concern, irrespective of the fact that the notice period has lapsed and no appeals been made. The problem is if those that are entitled to receive notice, if they have not received notice, they could not have appealed if they didn't have the notice. So that's the issue of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. As I said, the clerk team appears to be looking for information to see if we did receive any notification. At this point, I'll let them do their work, but I should probably question the clerk. Is there any reason not to proceed with this matter at this point, Clerk Berfeld? I mean, certainly councillors are asking some questions about the viability of applying the changes that were made in the OPA to this matter. Is this a cause for us to consider deferral, or do you have an opinion on this one? Okay. So, Council, just give us a moment while the clerk and I sort this out. Sean, do you have any opinion about whether it's imprudent for us to move forward with this in the absence of clarity around whether due notice has been served?
Thank you for the question. I think North Perth has the opportunity to provide a recommendation. If the recommendation is to defer it based on the fact that you're uncomfortable with the proposal, that now would be the time to do that. Alternatively, if you go with the staff recommendation, we could just move it forward in that respect as well. It's a tough one, and I apologize that I don't have better guidance.
So let me thank you, Mr. Yermas. Let me pick up on the clerk's action. The clerk has just sent to our email addresses some information that was received from the county pertaining to OPA 189. I believe this is the number of the amendment, which is at stake here, which is in question here, and it looks, clerk, does this look like the kind of formal advice that we're supposed to be issued with regards to these kind of matters? Okay, the clerk is going to see if she can pull it up on the main screen for council's review as well. So just bear with us as she does that. Okay, so this is a correspondence that was received. Can you confirm the date that this was received? So dated at the town of Stratford on the 10th of August. And it describes the purposes and impacts of this. So the corporation did receive this notice on that date, Perfeld, on the 10th of August, we received this. Okay. So this was apparently found on the county's website. and we assume that it was posted that date due to statutory expectations. This is what we know. This is what we have. The county appears to have served public notice on its website of this change. Can I ask, I believe Councillor Rothwell has another question, so I'm willing to entertain that.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and I don't want to drag this out any longer than necessary. So what you're seeing is the notice to say that no appeals have been received, but what should have happened, and perhaps it's there in an email through to our staff that didn't come through to us, is that shortly after that decision of County Council in July, is when the notice of decision should have been sent to any and all people, including the municipality of North Perth, that gave comment through to the county, and that would have given the municipality of North Perth, as I said earlier, the opportunity during the appeal period to lodge an appeal if it chose to do so. Clearly, the information which our clerk has provided is important, saying that it was posted to say that there were no appeals during that time. As I said earlier, if North Perth did not receive, or any other person or agency that responded did not have, was not given the notice of decision that there isn't an opportunity to appeal, they wouldn't have had the ability to do so. So that's the issue of concern, and hopefully our staff at North Perth, as well as Sean and the county staff, can try to address the issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. We'll continue to chase it, but I think there's a bit of uncertainty about this moment in time. Hopefully, we'll get clear clarity. So thank you for your insight into the process. I'm inclined to suggest, Council, that at this point we're being asked for a recommendation about this consent to sever. We assume that the new provisions as a result of OPA 189 apply, and I think we should put this motion on the floor and see what happens, unless there's vigorous objection to that at this point. So let me read the motion into the record, and then we'll see what happens. The motion that's proposed to us is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever, number B20-21, by Conley Farms Inc., care of Ralph and Paulette Conybeare, owner, affecting lands described as Lot 23, Concession 4, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 5599, line 81, dated August 23rd, 2021, for information. And that Council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever, number B20-2021, described as Lot 23, Concession 4, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 5599, line 81, subject to the 10 conditions listed in the planning report dated August 23rd, 2021. Council, you'll notice a new format change there. You should all be delighted that I'm not reading the phone book to you at this point, because after some consultation with staff, they've found a better way to shorten these resolutions for us. And as long as you acknowledge that those 10 conditions are in the report, and that's what's intended here, then we believe we don't have to read those into the public record. So hooray, at least from my perspective, hooray. Councillor Duncan, would you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I'm willing to move that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
And yes, I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate now? All right, we're not seeing any further. We acknowledge that there's some concern about the OPA 189 and its process, but the matter before us remains. So why don't we have that vote? So that is carried. I see that Councillor Johnston seems to have joined us. So welcome, Councillor Johnston. That is great. Thank you. So I think second verse is pretty similar here, at least in this in these two songs. I'm going to ask Planner Yilmaz to weigh in on the second application from the same applicant that intends to create a new residential lot in the agricultural zone in Elma Township. And Mr. Yilmaz, the floor is yours for this one as well.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. So as for the second application, the subject property is located at 7568 Road 154 and is primarily composed of active agricultural land and contains an existing farm dwelling with a frame maintenance shed and a frame shed that is to be removed. The consent sketch submitted with the application illustrates a proposed irregular shaped severed lot with a lot frontage of approximately 17 meters or 55.8 feet along Road 154 and a lot area of approximately 0.53 hectares or 1.3 acres. The proposed severed lot contains an existing two-story farm dwelling with a frame maintenance storage shed, as well as a well and a weeping bed. The proposed retained farm lot would have a lot frontage of approximately 988 meters along Road 154 and 402 meters along line 78 with a total lot area of approximately 39.9 hectares or 98.6 acres. The proposed retained farm lot contains farmland and no buildings. The drain bisects the property as well. Decisions on consent to sever applications must be consistent with the provincial policy statement, which, as I mentioned earlier, states that surplus farm dwelling severances must be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate water and sewage services. The proposed consent application would result in the severance of a dwelling that is surplus to the farming operation, resulting from farm consolidation. It is the opinion of staff that the proposed severed lot is a minimum size needed to accommodate the residential use and appropriate water and sewage services. Additionally, as required by the PPS, the retained farm parcel will be rezoned to prohibit the establishment of any future residential dwellings. The entirety of the subject property is within the agriculture designation of the County of Perth official plan. Specific County of Perth official plan policies applicable to the application include Section 5631, which are surplus farm dwelling severance policies, as well as Section 16.3, which are general consent criteria. Staff have reviewed the application against the requirements of Section 5631 and Section 16.3 and conclude that the proposed surplus farm dwelling severance conforms with these policies. This is discussed in greater detail in the staff report. To note, the retained lands have access to the farmland south of the drain via Road 154. However, the lands north of the municipal drain do not appear to have designated access. A condition has been included, condition number 10, which will require confirmation that an appropriate access point is established to access those farmlands. Both the proposed severed lot and retained farm lot are within the agricultural zone of the Municipality of North Perth zoning bylaw. As noted, a condition of consent has been included that will impose restrictions on future uses of the severed and retained lot through a site-specific amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This amendment will also capture any deficiencies created as a result of the severance. Staff have no objection to the proposed consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling lot, subject to the conditions of consent that have been included. As such, it is planning staff's recommendation that North Perth Council recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever number B2121. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Burfelds, are you seeing anything? No. Okay. We're not seeing anything at this point, so let's look at the resolution that's been proposed. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B21-21 by Conley Farms Inc., care of Ralph and Paulette Connie Bear, owner, affecting lands described as Part Lot 25, Concession 5, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 7568 Road 154, dated August 23rd, 2021, for information. And that council recommends that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever number B21-21, described as Part Lot 25, Concession 5, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 7568 Road 154, subject to the 10 conditions listed in the planning report dated August 23rd, 2021. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one?
So moved.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this one? Are we seeing anything, Clerk Barracks? Okay. Seeing nothing coming up, then let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My vote didn't pop up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Manstead. So that is carried with a 9-1 vote. Thank you very much. All right, that allows us to move on to item 5.2.3, and this council is in receipt of a report from the clerk that follows up on earlier work commissioned by this council to prepare a new off-road vehicle bylaw draft. I'm going to invite the clerk to give us an update on this work, including the draft of the new bylaw that has been brought forward for council's consideration at this point. Let me just adjust my AV settings so that we don't create a black hole.
Pat, I believe you're muted.
Okay, so we've come to realize that Clerk Barfeld's audio is not coming through at this point, so we're going to see if we can troubleshoot that and bring her back to you. She might have to roll back and repeat the last 2 minutes of her life, but we'll give that a shot. The clerk is getting a yellow triangle for IT's support, just so the IT fellows know that there's a yellow triangle showing up in her display. So there's a belief perhaps that she is having some technical connection problems between her microphone and her computer. But we understand IT is indicating that they'll be down to see you momentarily. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead. So, Council, just a brief pause while we await the attendance from the IT team. I would gladly sing for you, but I'm not sure the public would appreciate that. So just hold on.
I'm now testing my microphone. So that's off there. Okay. Okay, so council, if you can hear me, I'll start again. As my report states, I am presenting tonight a draft bylaw. This is a result of prior changes to legislation for off-road vehicles, a delegation that was heard by North Perth Council, as well as the survey results that we have received as per your say North Perth. I have received some comments from the mayor and one additional council prior to tonight's council meeting. I believe in front of you, you have three choices. The first is to not proceed with a bylaw regarding off-road vehicles. The other one is to adopt a bylaw that totally restricts off-road vehicles in North Perth, or adopt a similar bylaw, maybe amended as we have before you tonight. You'll note as far as the surveys, that the surveys was answered by 298 individuals, very much in favor of some sort of an off-road vehicle operating in North Perth. In the research, I have actually looked at a few bylaws. The one before you tonight is very similar to the town of Minto, as well as the township of North Huron. I've also found one from the township of Clearview that adopted a bylaw that was restricting the use of off-road vehicles everywhere except for identified routes. And then, of course, the county of Middlesex this summer adopted a bylaw prohibiting off-road vehicles on all of their county roads. So what I have before you tonight, as I said, is a very much a draft, something that council can converse about, or at least provide me with some further direction. The mayor did make comments that he had concerns about an understanding of what obstruction does mean, and I'm willing to look at that further. I did send off an email to our OPP Sergeant Coelho, asking his comments, because it basically is bylaw and OPP that will be enforcing, and having a better understanding what he thought I could do with the bylaw in regards to obstruction. The township of Guelph Aramasa has extended their penalties, and they've added in theirs a clause that deals more with an understanding of obstruction, as well as one of them is that states failure to stop when directed by an officer shall be an offense of obstruction. Just trying to provide more clarity. I'm certainly willing to do that, as well as make sure that OPP has a good understanding, as well as by law enforcement, as to how that would be enforced. I also believe that Councillor Behrens has a comment that she would like to bring forward. So again, this is basically here tonight for council discussion. I need some direction as to whether you want me to continue to proceed, or how you would like to move forward with this bylaw. The delegation, Sean Thompson, has also received a copy of the bylaw, and at this time has not provided me with any additional comment. So I'd be happy to move forward with any comments or answer any questions if I can.
Thanks, Clerk Crutchfield. So let's use the speaking order here. It looks like Councillor Richardson is first.
Thank you, and it's good to see that a survey result happens to come back with such positive results. I do think that we need to move forward and actually go ahead with the draft bylaw that you've proposed, and I do like the restrictions on the Main and Wallace and in front of hospitals and nursing homes and the other slight restrictions that we've put on. I certainly don't foresee it being a scourge of the town by any means. It's certainly going to be just for the ease of getting around town, but at least that they're allowed to, in order to get out of town, I would think that that would be of benefit to those who happen to participate into that sport. and especially, and even on the county roads, and I do agree with that, and the highways are just not the spot for that as it become a little problematic. But I like the draft the way it is way it is written in the draft bylaw, and I would certainly be open for discussion for any amendments that would take place further, more council discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, councillors. And just as a point of clarification so that all councillors know, this doesn't affect county roads that are within the boundaries of North Perth at this time. That's a county decision, and that could come in due course. I think next up is Councillor Barracks.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you, I had made comment to Clerk Bearfelds regarding in the actual draft bylaw itself, 3.10. I was just concerned that perhaps it says no person shall operate an off-road vehicle on any highway between December 1st and March 31st, but it did exempt the hunters. I was hoping that it would exempt the hunters and farmers from that time frame, so that they would still be. Sometimes during agricultural practices, there are reasons to be able to access land. It's easier to do it with an ATV, and it's easier to do it off of a road instead of through a field. So I wonder if we could amend that. And my second concern that I noticed later that I had circled is 3.4, and it talks about operating an off-road vehicle in the urban areas between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. and that not being allowed. I was wondering if we could simply say shall not operate an off-road vehicle between 11 and 6. Whether it's urban or rural, it shouldn't matter. If it's not good for noise in the urban centers, it's probably not good for noise in the rural centers. So those are my two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Councillor Duncan.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. My concerns were with 3.10, like Julie said, but I think the provincial part about the use of ATVs by farmers and trappers on roads would probably cover that off and supersede our bylaw because it is provincial legislation in the Highway Traffic Act. My other one was the part where it says no person shall operate an off-road vehicle on private property within the municipality of North Perth without written consent of the property owner. I think we should just back that down to permission of the property owner. I don't think it's proper for us to, use stuff in our bylaw that's trespass to Property Act material, and that's more or less what that is. And the other one was with the timelines as well. I think there needs to be an exemption in there for agricultural uses for a farmer to be able to use his ATV at all hours of the day and night. Say he has to go out and use it to put cattle back in or something. And the one other one was the winter time from December to March 31st. I know there's people in Atwood here that use them to move snow for themselves or their neighbors or their relatives. So that would restrict the fact that they could travel around Atwood to use their ATV to move snow in snow clearing. So those are the few things I was concerned with that maybe we could amend in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. The clerk is taking notes of all of our comments, of course. Councillor Rothwell is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think you answered the one point. I had sent an email earlier today or just before the meeting through to Clerk Bearfield. She may not have seen it. And it's specifically regarding whether the County of Perth allows ATVs on county roads or not. So I think we'll get that information later. And just further in item 4 regarding exemptions, I think perhaps we could see an amendment in there to address those specific exemptions from other provincial legislation dealing both A, with hunters, and B, with farmers. That deals with that in particular. I know that in a couple of sections we do talk about hunters, as Councillor Behrens and Councillor Duncan have addressed, but the exemptions may very well be as in addition as like a 4.2, for example, to specifically state the act wherein there is exemptions for hunters and farmers. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next up is Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you everyone for their comments. The trail is my main concern, going through town, the walking trail and main roads and probably the hospital. But I feel that we need to try to keep our regulations the same as our neighboring communities so that they're all kind of the same and everybody's in the same page. But I hope that we can move this forward and get a lot of respect from the users and make the best of it. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, Councillor Seiler, at this point, this bylaw draft does not address or change any practices with regards to the North Perth Trail System and ATVs.
Hi, bud.
I think
Hi, buddy.
That's what you were expecting, right? So if I've got it wrong, if you had a different position, Councillor Seiler, I'd like to hear it. I think what you intend is that we're not going to allow or any change to our policy with regards to ATVs or ORVs on North Perth trails. It's about the walking trails, not the cycling trails. Yeah.
Well, my understanding is that there's no motorized vehicles allowed on the walking trails. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, that's. There's no change proposed to that with this draft.
So it all stays the same. So.
Yeah, that's the intent on that one. Sure. Councillor Anstedt and Buddy.
Yeah, sorry, everyone. I got a bit of my hands full here. Thanks, Pat, for the report. I just had a question. Just looking at the fines, these are obviously set from the provincial bylaw or the Provincial Offences Act. Do we have any discretion on these? Like, can we request these to be changed? I'm just concerned that if the fines aren't working and enforcement is not stopping any problems that we're having, we may need to look at more tough enforcement measures.
I'm going to ask the clerk to come in on this one. Just bear with me while I set the date for that. Hold on.
Yes, we certainly can make changes. The presentation here tonight, based on the schedule presented, here tonight, is very consistent with all of our neighbors. And if you go to most bylaws, these are the fines that are set. They will be then sent to the Crown Attorney where they'll be approved and set fines. However, that doesn't mean that we can't go back and amend them at a later date. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yes, we could. Yep. And they would then have to be approved. And further to Councillor Rothwell's comment, I did receive the email, and I did actually send an email off to two of the gentlemen that works for the Public Works of the County of Perth and didn't hear back. But I'm sure they'll return an email to me shortly.
Thanks. So I think the implication here is that we could submit higher fines as a proposition in this bylaw and that they would have to be approved, but it is within the realm of reason. Is that something that you're asking us to consider, Councillor Anstedt? I might be frozen. Am I frozen? Can you hear me? Okay, so I guess I'm not frozen. All right. Councillor Anstedt, we seem to have lost for a moment. Let's see here. Councillor Andreessen is next.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. This is just a minor housekeeping note for Clerk Burfelt's. Just 5.2. It should read no person shall obstruct, hinder, or otherwise interfere with a police officer, I think. So just correct that to say police officer. I think that might be more clear. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So the clerk has taken note of all of these comments so far. Councillor Richardson, did you want back in on this one?
Yes, thank you. Through you. Just clarity, maybe I'm not understanding. 3.3 discussing no person shall operate an off-road vehicle at the rate of speed greater than, and maybe this is particular bylaw wording. Point A is 20 kilometers per hour if the speed limit established under the Highway Traffic Act as amended or municipal bylaw for that part of the highway is not greater than 50 kilometers an hour, or the second one saying that it is greater than 50 kilometers. Should it not be posted speed limit or something? I'm just wondering, where does the magic 50 come into it if it's they're rating the speed for the ATV being either 20 or 50? Should it be relative to the actual speed of the actual posted speed limit of the road? Some are 40, some are 50, some are 80. Thank you.
So the clerk advises me that that terminology is taken from the Act, but she will go back and evaluate this and consider what you've suggested as improvements in the phrasing and so forth for that, if that's all right with you, Councillor Richardson.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other comments at this point before we consider the next motion here related to this matter? So I think what I want to do is remind Council that we've taken a list of suggestions for revisions, updates, improvements, clarifications even, and I'm sure the clerk has noted my question about a definition of obstruction, which should be in this bylaw as well. Councillors, you've heard all of this. You've heard your colleagues' comments on this. Do any of you have concerns about your colleagues' comments, so that we don't chase something that we don't need to unnecessarily? Anyone? So it sounds to me like the consensus of council is that most of the comments that have been heard about possible amendments, improvements, etc., are acceptable at this point to council, and that we can charge forward with the resolution. This resolution is not passing the bylaw, of course, council. It's just saying that we've collected your comments. We're going to bring forward a draft of a bylaw in the near future that reflect the comments that have been made at this meeting. So let me read the resolution that we have to that end. It reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceed with the adoption of the off-road vehicle bylaw as amended. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for that one?
Yes, also move.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder for that?
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion, debate, or last-minute input into suggestions for the refinement of a bylaw? All right, seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council, for your good work on giving us some suggestions for that one. That's great. Next up then is item 5.2.4. Council is asked to approve a new extreme heat policy, part of our emergency management policies and protocols. And again, I'm going to ask the clerk for some comments on this matter. Let me set the AV up so we don't cause the universe to implode.
Again, Council, today being another heat warning day constitutes North Perth moving forward with a policy. I truly believe that we need to have something in writing, directing staff and the public as to what our expectations and what we are willing to do. Climate change has certainly been noted, and I really feel it's time to move forward with this. The City of Stratford has done a very similar policy, and that is why it's before you tonight. It certainly does have some financial and staffing implications, which I feel Council should approve. I'm not sure that if I have any more comment, it's just basically setting it out there, what we would be willing to do and what facilities may be available and how it would affect the North Perth staff. Willing to answer any questions. I'm sure as well the CEO would be willing to assist me on this.
Thank you, Clerk Bearfelds. So on this matter, Council, any questions or first comments? Okay, we're not seeing any, so let me pull the resolution draft that we have here for our consideration. The draft reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the Municipality of North Perth Extreme Heat Policy. Councillor Andreessen, would you serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I'm happy to make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstedt, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Discussion or debate on this matter? All right, we're not seeing any, so let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. My vote didn't pop up. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Anstedt. And
I'm in favor as well. Councillor Rothwell, my vote didn't pop up either. Thank you.
thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And I note that Councillor Behrens indicated that she stepped away for a moment for another matter, but we'll call this carried then at this point in her absence. Thank you very much. Next up then moves us along to item 5.3, reports from the Programs Department. We don't have reports coming from that department this evening, but Council, as you can appreciate, they are always industrious. They are always in motion, especially in the summer. And so we're grateful for all of the work of that staff. Next then is item 5.4, reports from our Facilities Department. For our only item from this department tonight, we are brought into some good news that the community has been given an ICIP COVID stream local government grant by the Government of Ontario for the purposes of necessary improvements of and enhancements to the trail system in North Perth. The project includes trail improvement, bridge repair, and installation of a trail washroom facility. I'm going to call on North Perth Manager of Facilities Jeff Newell to give us a brief overview of this request of Council, which is to engage in the contract with the government. Welcome, Mr. Newell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of Council. We were successful in receiving the grant for a sum of $167,000, 726, sorry. That is 100% funded through 80% from the Government of Canada, as well as 20% from the province. The work is to begin by September 30th and completed by December 31st of this year. So work will begin very soon on that expansion. In the north part of near Gowanstown, as well as the bridge repair that would be taking place on two of the bridges that are on the existing trail, as well as adding the bathroom. So the recommendation is just to have Council approve us entering into a transfer payment agreement with the government and through the Minister of Infrastructure.
I'm not seeing it. Council, I'm just looking for a document here. Hold on, please. Which is, so I think we have a resolution here that that we can consider after any opportunity for questions or first comments. Okay. Do we have Councillor Seiler, would you like to ask a question or make a comment?
Yes, I just have a question for Jeff. Confirmation on the Goffstown Trail. Where does that stand?
So work is still being done to secure a portion of the Gowanstown Trail that is currently owned by two different, one is a corporation, one is an individual. We still need to secure the property there in order to put a trail through that area. However, we are able to do some work on the trail north of that area to begin the trail from Gowanstown. So right now there's still work being done on trying to secure that property.
Thank you. Anything further from council before we consider the bylaw resolution that is available to us? Okay, we're not seeing anything, so here's the draft of the resolution. That bylaw number 88-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the manager of facilities to sign an agreement with Her Majesty, the Queen in right of the province of Ontario, represented by the Minister of Infrastructure for the province of Ontario, be introduced, read and considered read a first, second, and third time and be passed. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
I will move.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder tonight on that one?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through to you. Thanks again, Jeff, for the report. My question specifically before, because I didn't get it in before, is the time frame that council that you mentioned about the discussions with the two property owners. What is the anticipated time frame for that? And then, depending on that answer, is there an end date in which we have to utilize these funds from the federal and provincial government? Thank you.
So there is an end date, but my understanding is that you can apply for an extension if the case is that you cannot use all the funds, specifically in this situation for that one section of trail. The understanding, or my understanding, is that even the consulting work for the bridges will take up a large portion of that funding available. So I don't anticipate that there will be any problem with us spending that entire amount. But you could apply for an extension, is my understanding, if it goes beyond December 30th.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or debate? We're not seeing any at this point. So let's have that vote. And that is carried. Again, I think Councillor Barracks is absent still. Oh, she's there. Okay, who are we missing? Councillor, there we go. So with that vote, thank you. That's carried. All right, that allows us, thank you, Jeff, for your report. That allows us to move on to item 5.5, reports from the Department of Finance and Treasury. As item 5.5.1, finance staff has brought forward for council review of accounts as of this day, August 23rd, 2021. I'll note, as is customary, some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from considerations and voting. Are there any questions about this report for staff? Seeing none, I have a resolution before me that reads as follows: that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total is $2,189,042.40. Can I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'd be happy to move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And I think that's the crew, so that's carried. Thank you very much. As item 5.5.2, council is presented with a draft of formal correspondence representing an organizational response to a resident, Mr. John Pronk, concerning requests by Mr. Pronk associated with property tax relief as a result of rescaled operations of the corporation during the pandemic period. I'm going to ask Ms. Hale, our treasurer, for comments. Ms. Hale?
Thank you very much, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of council. As council is aware, Mr. John Pronk provided us with a letter of concern and request with regard to his property tax. I did have the opportunity to speak with John, and he, at the end of our conversation, requested that council respond to him in writing, and I provided a draft for council consideration this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments, first comments about this matter? Councillor Barracks?
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, through you. Fran, thank you very much for your response. I do note that particularly one item may be missing in my conversation with Mr. Pronk. He wanted us, as we are the municipality, and have conversation from time to time with our MP and MPP. He simply asked that perhaps we could convey his concerns to whichever form of government it may apply to. So I'm just wondering, is it possible just to put a simple statement at the end that says that we will refer concerns to our MP and MPP?
Yes, I think that through Mayor Kiesenberg, I think that would be a great addition, and we could actually just copy both of them on our letter as well.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments? All right. Assuming, Ms. Hale, that you've picked up on Councillor Byrne's suggestion, the resolution, I think, is still quite valid, that has been drafted for us. It reads as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the correspondence John Pronk report for information, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the draft letter to John Pronk to be issued, sorry, I'm rewriting the motion here, as amended in response to his letter received by Council on June 22nd, 2021. Can I call on Councillor Barracks to be our mover for that?
Yes, I will move that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up is item 5.5.3. For this item, staff is recommending the acquisition of license to a new software solution intended to integrate neatly with our new budget software system. It will include a suite of tools to support the management of service requests, work orders, inspections, and maintenance. And it appears that it will integrate with our GIS tool set as well, which is becoming an increasingly critical part of our IT infrastructure. Ms. Hale, is that you or is that Ms. Belfour?
This evening, Becky Belfour is with us, our Deputy Treasurer Asset Management Specialist, and she'll speak to the report.
Thank you. So let's hear from Ms. Belfour then.
Thank you, Mayor Todd and Council. Before you is the report for the Citywide Maintenance Manager and GIS Viewer System. This purchase of software would be a single source purchase as it fits well with our current Citywide Asset Management Program. Through our new chart of accounts review and layout, we have been working towards ensuring that our new accounts have financial statement information and FIR in the layout that we would like. And currently our fleet is a subledger within that chart of accounts. And it was determined that this program would be ideal to move that away from our chart accounts and be housed within this maintenance manager. It fits nicely, like I said, with Citywide and our whole asset program. Like you'd mentioned, Mayor Todd, all of the other capabilities that it has. It also is in keeping with our item number 1 of our key stakeholder priorities in the administrative process efficiency review. Activities can be tracked. So if the public calls in or emails in, they can submit where there may be a problem, what kind of problem. They will receive an email back, and they will also get a requisition number to be followed up with, so that staff can follow up and let them know what kind of situation it was and how it was followed up. So it really fits nicely also with our strategic plan 2.1.1 in clarifying and defining services and service levels, as we will be tracking different work orders, that kind of thing, for a dashboard for council to see, staff to see, to be able to, enhance the services that we are providing. So as part of this whole program, the cost is $127,550 for licensing, implementation, and training for this maintenance manager and GIS viewer, and it will be implemented over the next 16 months with the blessing of the new finance and development coordinator as the champion. That will work nicely for us within the departments. It is a corporate-wide program, and I think it will take us to that next level in service delivery for the residents of North Perth. I just would like to note that the recommendation does say Public Sector Digest. I've been asked to actually have that moved to be Public Sector Citywide, as they are corporately moving away from Public Sector Digest as a company. So maybe if council approves, we can make that change at that time. I entertain any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Ms. Belfour. Let me ask the first one, if you don't mind, and that is about single sourcing. Is the reason that this is being single sourced is because it integrates and is sort of a brother or sister of the budgeting software? Is that what's going on here?
The budgeting software, as well as our citywide asset management software, all ties into one corporate software package.
Okay, and one more question, just sort of as a thought here. Did you compare pricing models of other companies that provide similar solutions, just to sort of scope as to whether that price tag is a reasonable one in the marketplace for this kind of solution set?
To be quite honest, I have not got a price from another company. However, we did look at some other solutions. Another solution that we just had them do a mock-up of the program. At the time, I couldn't get a price because we weren't in that process. So then when this came up that we actually did need something, and it fit quite nicely with what we have currently, it just seemed logical to move in this direction.
Great, thank you. Councillors, any questions or first comments? Okay, we're not seeing any, so I have a resolution here for consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the single source purchase from is it Public Sector Citywide? Is that the correct?
PSD Citywide.
Okay, PSD Citywide for the Citywide Maintenance Manager and GIS Viewer System for a total purchase implementation price, of $127,550 to be paid over the next 16 months as the project work is completed. Could I call on Deputy Mayor Callum to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Johnston, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing anything. It is a big price tag. I'm I'm startled by the size of that price tag, to be honest. That is for the first 16 months, and then there's a license fee afterwards.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Do we know predictably what that license fee is going to be?
Around 18,000, just over $18,000 a year.
Okay, that's something more consistent with my experience. Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments before we turn to the vote? All right, let's have that. There we go. A little pause and you scribe. That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks, Becky, for joining us tonight. We next up is environmental services, item 5.6. And we have the one item there. Item 5.6.1 invites council to receive the 2021 in my notes, that's not good. 2020 well inspection reports prepared and issued by the Ontario Environment, Conservation and Parks. Mr. Hackett, I know, is with us. He's our Manager of Environmental Services, and we'll ask him to address this item and these reports. Mr. Hackett, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. Yes, these reports come out every year. We're inspected by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, or the MECP. My apologies, I'm having some connection problems here. It's sort of been going in and out, so I'll try and spit this out quickly. We're in Molesworth and Gowanstown all had 100% on their scores, so that was excellent. Listowel System had a final inspection report of 95.89%, and that was due to one non-compliance. As they stated in the report, all microbiological water quality monitoring requirements for treated samples were not being met. That stemmed from one situation where we have the way they look at what a week is. A sample has to be taken within 5 days of the previous sample, but not more than 10 days. Over Christmas time, we ran into a time where it turned out to be 11 days. We were aware of it. We informed the ministry that this was an issue for us. It had to do with the lab not being open over Christmas. And we informed everyone of it, but they still wrote us up for it, but that's okay. There were no further actions required, as there's nothing you could really do about it at that time. So I could take any questions if there's any.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Council, questions or first comments on this matter? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive this report on the attached 2020 Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks well inspection reports as information. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one?
I would happily move that, please. Thank you.
Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this report? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Hackett. Always good to have you with us. Let's turn now to item 5.7, reports from the Manager of Operations. Item 5.7.1 invites Council to award the tender for the improvements of the Holsworth Municipal Drain to Markhart Farm Drainage. I'm going to invite Manager of Operations Lyndon Couch to make any comments he believes will support our action. Mr. Couch, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. Hopefully my reception is coming in for you right now. Thank you again. In front of us is a recommendation for Section 78 maintenance work that came to council earlier this summer. And then the required engineering report was received. and then it was provided for tender through our electronic bidding system. In front of you are the results. They're within the budget from the engineering firm that has been secured to do the work. And Marquette Farm Drainage is being recommended to be awarded for the price listed at $220,111. So the recommendation in front of council is to move forward with the construction and the award to the contractor.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any at this point, so I have a resolution for us that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award the tender number 319050 Holsworth Municipal Drain as per the recommendation from GM Blue Plan Engineering Limited to Mark Hart Farm Drainage Limited in the amount of $220,111.10, HST excluded. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. We have no report from the fire department this evening, which brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees? As usual, to request the opportunity to speak, please indicate in the chat function and we'll call in order presented. Councillor Andreessen is first.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just a question about our next steps as a council in terms of moving our meetings to be in person. And if there's I'm kind of asking at this time because perhaps there should be a report about that. And I'm not sure what the next steps are to have us do that. And yeah, I'm just wondering if that might be a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. It's something that's been bandied about a little bit, and I think it's quite appropriate if you're prepared to make that motion to request a report from staff. I think, you know, there are two issues, perhaps, Councillor Andreessen, worth our consideration. So I'll position these for you. The first is what to do about resumption of council in council chambers and live audience participation and welcoming into the chamber. I think there's a report that could be brought forward on that. And the second issue is, of course, what to do about vaccination status of our staff and our team and councillors. And that one might be, of course, a little more controversial given some of the things that have gone on lately in the public domain, but it's not something that is distinct really from the first issue. There's a tie-in. So I invite you to consider if that's what your intent is. Is that what you're hoping for?
Yes, thank you. I was just thinking perhaps a staff report would be helpful in terms of understanding what the next steps might be and whether it's possible or not, I'm not sure, but you know, the appropriate research could go into making that report and helping us make a decision. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make some notes here. I'll need some wording for this. Just bear with me a bit longer here. Okay, here's what I've drafted. Let's see where this goes. That staff be directed to prepare a report pertaining to re-engaging with use of and attendance at council chambers for council meetings and committee meetings. And further, that staff prepare a report pertaining to corporate policy regarding vaccination of staff and councillors for COVID-19. Does that seem acceptable to you, Councillor Andreessen?
Yes, and I'm assuming in the report there may be some suggested changes to the council chambers or other accommodations that might need to happen. But yes, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that, to me, that includes notions around that. I think it also includes notions around consulting with the health unit about their advice with regards to this and so forth. So any councillor wishing to make any additional points or ask to strike anything that was in those suggested that suggested wording? Okay, so yeah, we see in the chat that both Councillor Richardson and Councillor Rothwell looked like they wanted to raise the same point. So thank you, gentlemen. Do either of you have comment or input on this matter? Councillor Richardson?
Yes, thank you. And through you, just maybe a supplemental that I'm just wondering if there's any limitations put forward by the province that would possibly reference to that in the report as well, that would limit our ability to meet, like whether the province, because I do know what the maximum groups can attend and can do that possibly, or if there's not limitations on it right now, what is their benchmark for the ability for councils to be able to come back? At what stage does the province need to be at, or what recommendations are they putting forward as far as what they're doing? So just thinking what our province has to say about that. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I think the staff would obviously factor in the regulations that the province has put in place and advise us what's allowed and what's not. And again, I think that there's an important matter of principle to consult with Dr. Clausen and the health unit team to determine what their advice is as well on this matter at this time. Anyone else with comments? Okay, so we have a resolution. I'm hoping that Danette roughly got it. We can pick it up from the video later if we need to get the precise wording and massage it a little bit. But essentially, two thrusts. The first is about council and re-engaging in live setting or hybrid setting and all the considerations for that. And the second part of that is issues around staff policy for staff and council vaccination. So can I call on Councillor Andreessen, since you raised this matter? Will you be its mover?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Anstedt, will you serve as the seconder for this one?
Yes, I would second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? It's interesting. I see Councillor Seiler in the chamber with me. I suspect there's a technology problem for Councillor Seiler. So he may not vote on this one unless we allow him to raise his hand here. But let's have that vote. Councillor Seiler, before you go, what say you? Are you in favor or opposed? In favor. So with that, that motion is carried. Thank you. And I think we're going to get Councillor Seiler hooked back up here momentarily. Thank you. Anything else for item 6 on our agenda, councillors? Any other requests of the staff or committees? Do we see anything, Clerk Berfels? Okay. Next up then is item 7. We have received no items of correspondence which require our further action. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. We have no additional bylaw proposals beyond those considered earlier or the one at the end of the meeting, the confirmatory for our consideration. So we'll wait till that point. That brings us to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing anything there. That allows us to move to item 10 on our agenda, the good news item. So councillors, for item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? And it's not just for councillors. If staff have things, of course, they're welcome to let us know as well. If you'd like to speak, key yourself up in the window, please. Okay, we're not seeing anything at this point in time. So let's move on to item number 11. Tonight we have 3 matters before us. That's amended from the original plan based on Councillor Duncan's introduction of a request. 3 items before us to be considered in closed session, a meeting of council. I will now read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter closed session. This committee proceed in camera at 8:55 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to 1, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the corporation or local board regarding a municipal drainage tribunal. 2, the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding the Ontario Occupational Health and Safety Act. And 3, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate from council on this action? Seeing none, let's have that vote.
I'm in favor. Councillor Rothwell, my vote didn't pop up here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, what say you? He's in favor. So with Councillor Seiler's vote here in the chamber, that is carried. Council, at this point, we are recessed from open session and moving into closed session. What that means for those who are still on the call is if you've been invited to remain for the closed session, please stay with us. If you have not been invited, then it's expected that you will exit at this point in time. And we will make some adjustments to the broadcast streaming at this point so that this meeting is indeed closed session. And for those councillors who are with us, let's take a break till 9:07, let's say. All right, 9:07. Keep it odd. All right.
just doing updates. Test. Hey, you're through a little long. See if she can hear me. Make sure that's actually unmuted. Test. Test. I hear myself. Actually, did the volume drop on that? Up. Test.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Are you checking the YouTube feed as well to make sure?
I can hear you.
Great. Simon's nodding his head too, so. Are you hearing something on YouTube?
I don't hear anything on YouTube, so I think we're good.
Okay, Matt says he's not hearing anything.
Oh, hang on. I just heard your testing on YouTube.
Okay, so we need to sort that out.
That's why we're doing the test. Click on the next.
All that previous audio is still coming through YouTube. Hold, please.
this to this. And hopefully that is picked up. Councillor Richardson, do you mind checking YouTube to see whether our beautiful faces are showing forward at this point?
Just wait for the delay and I will advise very shortly.
Thank you.
Beautiful faces and audio abound.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So that brings us to item 12 on our agenda. And we have no reports to offer outside of our in-camera session about the business of that session at this time. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. A draft of that here that I'm going to put into our session, that bylaw number 89-2021 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one? Yes, thank you, Councillor Seiler. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thanks. I don't think we have eScribe up and running at this point, so I think it's just a manual vote. Are there any opposed at this time? Seeing none, we'll call that carried, and that brings us to that point where we have completed all the deliberation and taken action on the business that was put before us. I have a motion to adjourn at this point that reads as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 9:57 p.m. To meet again for general council business on Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. So we got a couple weeks between now and our next meeting, council. Can I call on Councillor Anstead to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. And that's non-debatable. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, we'll call that motion carried. This meeting is therefore adjourned, and council will see you again the second Monday of September. Have a great couple of weeks and enjoy the whatever weather you want. Enjoy it.